I'm Sarah, 32 years old, and up until a few weeks ago, I thought I had my life pretty much figured out. I've been working as a translator for this big company for the past 5 years. I rent a small apartment in the city, nothing fancy, but it's mine, you know? On weekends, I hit up dance classes. It's my thing, helps me unwind after a week of staring at computer screens and deciphering foreign languages. Friends? Yeah, I've got a few. We grab drinks sometimes, catch a movie here and there. It's not much, but it's enough for me. Family, though? That's where things get complicated. See, I've got a younger sister, Emma. She's always been the golden child, Mom's favorite. Dad? He just went along with whatever Mom wanted. It's been like that for as long as I can remember. As we grew older, nothing changed. Emma got the attention, the praise, the support. Me? I was just there. An afterthought. So, I did what any self-respecting afterthought would do, I distanced myself. Calls became less frequent, visits even rarer. It was easier that way, less painful. Then, out of the blue, my phone rang. It was Mom. Sarah, it's your mother. Your father wants to see you. Can you come over this weekend? I nearly dropped my phone. Dad wanted to see me? That was new. Sure. I guess I can make it. Everything okay? Just come, Sarah. Saturday at 2. Don't be late. So, that Saturday, I found myself standing outside my parents' fancy house. It was a far cry from my rented apartment, that's for sure. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Mom answered, looking me up and down like she was appraising a piece of furniture. You're here. Come in. I stepped inside, and there they all were. Dad, looking frail and tired in his armchair. Emma, perfect as always, perched on the couch next to her husband, Richard. I'd only met him a handful of times. He was older than Emma, always busy with work or whatever it was rich guys did. Hey, everyone, I said, trying to sound casual. What's going on? Dad looked up at me, his eyes sad but determined. Sarah, sit down. We need to talk. I sat down, my heart racing. Dad looked awful, worse than I'd ever seen him. His once strong frame seemed to have shrunk, and his face was pale and drawn. Sarah, he began, his voice weak but steady, I'm terminally ill, sweetheart. The doctors, they don't think I have much time left. No, I whispered, tears welling up in my eyes. There must be something they can do. Dad shook his head slowly. I've explored every option, Sarah. It's time I put my affairs in order. I noticed Mom and Emma exchange a glance. There was something in their eyes I couldn't quite read. Dad continued, that's why I've called you all here today. I want to discuss my will. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. I could feel the tension, thick and suffocating. I've given this a lot of thought, Dad said, his gaze moving from Mom to Emma, then settling on me. Your mother will get the apartment in the city. Emma, you'll inherit this house. Emma nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. And Sarah, Dad paused, his eyes locking with mine. I've decided to leave you my savings. All $550,000 of it. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then all hell broke loose. What? Mom shrieked, her face contorting with rage. You can't be serious, John. Emma jumped to her feet. Dad, that's not fair. Sarah's barely even part of this family anymore. Dad's fist came down on the arm of his chair with surprising force. Enough, he roared, his illness momentarily forgotten. This is my decision, and it's final. I've been under your influence for far too long, Margaret. I've neglected Sarah because of you, because of your obsession with Emma. No more. He turned to me, his eyes softening. Sarah, I'm so sorry. Can you ever forgive me? Without hesitation, I moved to him, wrapping my arms around his frail body. Of course, Dad. Of course I forgive you. He hugged me back, his grip weak but filled with love. After a moment, he pulled away, exhaustion etched on his face. I'm tired now. I need to rest. As Dad retreated to his room, I found myself facing the furious glares of my mother and sister. You, Mom hissed, her voice dripping with venom. You need to refuse the money. It should go to Emma. I stood my ground, anger bubbling up inside me. No, it's Dad's decision, and I'm respecting it. Emma stepped closer, her eyes narrowed. You'll regret this, Sarah. Mark my words. As I left the house, Emma's taunts followed me. Look at you, all alone. No one wants you. I've got a rich, loving husband. What do you have? Richard's laughter joined hers, the sound grating on my nerves as I walked to my car. The next 2 weeks were hell. Every day, without fail, my phone would buzz with messages from Mom and Emma. They were relentless, demanding I give up the inheritance. I ignored them all. I threw myself into work, trying to drown out their voices with the clatter of my keyboard. Then, on a gray Tuesday morning, the call came. Dad was gone. I felt numb as I drove to the funeral. The service was a blur of black clothes and somber faces. Mom and Emma put on quite a show, sobbing dramatically and clinging to each other. I stood apart, my grief a quiet, hollow thing in my chest. After the service, we all gathered at the house. Emma made a big deal about the money she'd withdrawn for the funeral expenses, waving her purse around like a flag. I've got it all here, she announced to anyone who'd listen. Thousands of dollars. It's the least I could do for Daddy. As the last of the guests trickled out, I started gathering my things. That's when all hell broke loose. Emma's shriek cut through the somber atmosphere like a knife. My money, it's gone. Someone's stolen it. I froze, a chill running down my spine. Something about this felt wrong. Mom's eyes locked onto me, cold and accusing. It must have been someone who was here the whole time, she said, her voice dripping with insinuation. Empty your purse, Sarah, now. I stood my ground, anger bubbling up inside me. No, this is ridiculous. I haven't taken anything. Then you won't mind proving it, Emma sneered. Before I could respond, Richard was on the phone. Yes, police? We'd like to report a theft. My heart pounded as we waited for the police to arrive. This couldn't be happening. Not today, of all days. The officers were professional, but firm. Ma'am, we're going to need to check your bag, one of them said. Trapped, I handed over my purse. The officer opened it, reached inside, and pulled out a wad of cash and Emma's credit cards. The room exploded into chaos. Mom and Emma hurled accusations and insults, their voices rising to a fever pitch. I stood there, shell-shocked, trying to make sense of what was happening. I didn't do this, I stammered. I swear, I don't know how those got there. But my protests fell on deaf ears. At the police station, I sat in a cold, sterile room, my mind reeling. Then, to my surprise, Mom walked in. For a fleeting moment, I thought she might have come to help me. I should have known better. She leaned in close, her voice a venomous whisper. Give up the inheritance, Sarah. Do it, or you'll rot in jail. Everyone will know you as the rat who steals from her own family. Is that what you want? I felt something snap inside me. Years of neglect, of being the family outcast, of taking their abuse, it all came to a head in that moment. No, I hissed back. No, I won't give it up. Do your worst. Mom's face twisted with fury. Fine. Enjoy prison, you ungrateful trash. She stormed out, leaving me alone with my anger and a newfound determination. I managed to post bail and get out of that hellhole, but my troubles were far from over. As I stumbled into my apartment, exhausted and angry, my phone rang. It was my boss, Mark. Sarah, we need to talk, he said, his voice tense. I received a call today. Someone told me about the theft accusations against you. I felt the blood drain from my face. Mark, I swear I didn't. I believe you, Sarah, he cut in. But we can't have this kind of scandal at the office. Not right now. I'm putting you on unpaid leave until this blows over. The line went dead, and with it, my last shred of composure. I sank to the floor, hot tears streaming down my face. I cried until I had no tears left, then something changed inside me. The sadness gave way to a cold, hard fury. With shaking hands, I pulled out my laptop and navigated to Emma's Facebook page. There, staring back at me, was post after post of luxury cars. Which one should I get, she'd written, just days before Dad's death. The timestamp mocked me, they'd planned this all along, even before Dad was gone. That was it. The final straw. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd never thought I'd use. Jackson Investigations, a gruff voice answered. I need your help, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I need dirt on my sister and mother. They've set me up, and I'm going to prove it. The private investigator, a man named Mike, listened to my story without comment. When I finished, he let out a low whistle. Family drama, huh? Those are always the nastiest. I'll see what I can dig up. For 2 weeks, I waited. Finally, Mike called back. I've got good news and bad news, he said. Bad news is, your mom and sister are careful. They haven't discussed the inheritance or the theft where anyone could overhear. My heart sank. And the good news? I could almost hear his grin through the phone. Your sister's been a bad girl. I've got solid evidence she's cheating on that rich husband of hers. The next morning, I sent a carefully worded message to Richard, my sister's husband. Attached was a photo of Emma entering a hotel with a young, handsome man who definitely wasn't Richard. Interested in what happened next? I wrote. Meet me at Café Noir at 2 p.m. Richard showed up right on time, his face a mask of barely contained rage. I laid out everything I had, photos, videos, even recordings of Emma laughing about Richard's age and how she was only with him for his money. She said I'm boring in bed, Richard growled, his knuckles white as he gripped his coffee cup. That she's disgusted by me. I nodded sympathetically. I'm sorry, Richard. You deserve to know the truth. He looked up at me, his eyes hard. What do you want from me? Why show me this? I leaned in close. I want revenge, Richard. On Emma, on my mother. They set me up, tried to frame me for theft. I need your help to prove it. The next few days felt like an eternity. I paced my apartment, checking my phone obsessively, waiting for word from Richard. Finally, on the 4th day, my phone buzzed with a message. I've got what you need. Meet me. My heart raced as I drove to our agreed meeting spot, a quiet park on the outskirts of town. Richard was already there, looking grim but satisfied. Listen to this, he said, handing me a small USB drive. I plugged it into my laptop, and suddenly, I heard my mother's voice, clear as day. I can't believe how well it worked, she cackled. You should have seen Sarah's face when they found the money in her purse. Emma's laughter joined in. It was priceless. She actually thought she could get away with Dad's money. As if. Now she'll have to give up the inheritance, Mom said smugly. She can't risk going to jail. I felt a mix of emotions wash over me, vindication, anger, and a fierce determination. This is perfect, I told Richard. Thank you. He nodded, his face hard. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. According to our prenup, if Emma cheats, she gets nothing. In fact, she'll owe me. The day of the will reading arrived faster than I expected. As I walked into the notary's office, I saw them all there, Mom, Emma, and Richard. Mom and Emma wore matching smug expressions, clearly expecting me to cave and give up my inheritance. The notary cleared his throat, ready to begin, but I held up a hand. Before we start, I have something to say. Mom and Emma exchanged gleeful glances, probably thinking I was about to renounce my claim. Oh, how wrong they were. I know what you did, I said, my voice steady. I know you set me up, planted that money in my purse. And I can prove it. Before they could react, I pressed play on the recording. Their own voices filled the room, confessing to their scheme. Mom and Emma's faces drained of color. How did you get that? Emma stuttered. That's when Richard stood up. I recorded it, he said, his voice cold. I heard everything. Emma's eyes widened in panic. Richard, I don't understand why you did this. He cut her off by tossing a manila envelope on the table. Outspilled photos of Emma with her lover. Save it, he spat. I know all about your affair too. I'm filing for divorce, and according to our prenup, you don't get a cent. In fact, you'll be paying me. The room erupted into chaos. Mom and Emma started shouting, tears streaming down their faces. But their cries were cut short by a new voice. Ladies, you're under arrest. We all turned to see two police officers entering the room. I'd called them earlier, providing them with the evidence of the false accusation and blackmail attempt. As the officers led Mom and Emma away in handcuffs, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was over. I'd won. The notary, who had watched the whole scene unfold with wide eyes, cleared his throat again. Well, shall we proceed with the reading of the will? I nodded, finally ready to honor my father's last wishes. As the notary read out the details, confirming my inheritance, I couldn't help but think of Dad. I hope you're proud of me, I thought. I didn't let them push me around anymore. The aftermath of that day in the notary's office was a whirlwind. True to my expectations, the lawsuit against Mom and Emma was a slam dunk. With the recorded evidence and the police report, their guilt was indisputable. The judge didn't go easy on them. Attempting to frame your own daughter and sister, he said, his voice dripping with disgust. I've seen a lot in this courtroom, but this takes the cake. The verdict came down hard. Mom and Emma were ordered to pay a massive fine, directly to me. The amount was so large, I almost felt dizzy when I heard it. Mom's face turned ashen when she realized what this meant. But I'll have to sell the apartment, she stammered. The judge showed no mercy. Perhaps you should have thought of that before engaging in criminal behavior, Mrs. Thompson. Emma didn't fare any better. With the divorce proceedings in full swing, she was forced to sell the house Dad had left her. Most of that money went to Richard as per their prenup, but a significant chunk came to me as part of the court-ordered compensation. I watched from a distance as their lives unraveled. The apartment I'd grown up in, the house where we'd had that fateful meeting about Dad's will, both sold to strangers. Mom and Emma were left with almost nothing. As for me, life was looking up. With Dad's inheritance and the lawsuit money, I was suddenly in a very comfortable financial position. The first thing I did was quit my translation job. As understanding as Mark had been, the whole experience had left a bad taste in my mouth. Instead, I decided to invest in myself. I'd always had a passion for languages, beyond just translating them. With my newfound resources, I enrolled in a prestigious linguistics program. It was challenging, but for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. I also bought myself a beautiful apartment in the heart of the city. The rest of the money, I invested wisely. I worked with a financial advisor to set up a portfolio that would provide me with a steady income. It wasn't about being rich, it was about having the freedom to live life on my own terms. Months passed, and slowly, the dust began to settle. I heard through the grapevine that Mom had moved to a small rental on the outskirts of town. Emma, last I knew, was crashing on a friend's couch, her dreams of luxury cars and easy living shattered. Richard, true to his word, had divorced Emma and left her with nothing. He sent me a brief email thanking me for opening his eyes. I'm traveling the world now, he wrote. Living the life I always wanted, without dead weight holding me back. I owe you one. As for me, I was thriving. My studies were going well, I'd made new friends who appreciated me for who I was, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly independent. A few months flew by in a whirlwind of activity. With my newfound financial stability and a burning desire to make something of myself, I decided to take the plunge and open my own language school. It felt right, combining my passion for linguistics with my experience as a translator. Thompson Language Academy, I mused, tracing the words on the freshly painted sign. It had a nice ring to it. Recruiting teachers was easier than I'd expected. There were plenty of talented linguists out there looking for an opportunity, and soon I had a solid team teaching everything from French to Mandarin, catering to both adults and kids. One evening, as I was locking up the school, my phone buzzed with a message. It was from Richard. "Hey Sarah, I'm back in town. Heard about your new school. Fancy celebrating your success over a glass of wine?" I hesitated for a moment. Richard and I had parted on good terms after the whole inheritance debacle, but we'd never been close. Still, I owed him for helping me expose Emma and Mom's scheme. "Sure," I texted back. "My place, 8 p.m.? That night, Richard showed up at my door with a bottle of expensive red wine and a warm smile. We settled on the couch, glasses in hand, and started chatting. As the wine flowed, so did the conversation. Richard told me about his travels, his eyes lighting up as he described the places he'd seen and the people he'd met. I found myself opening up too, telling him about the challenges and joys of starting my own business. It felt nice. As the night wore on and the wine bottle emptied, I realized I was seeing a whole new side of Richard. I'm not sure who made the first move. Maybe it was the wine, maybe it was the newfound connection, or maybe it was just the culmination of all the changes in our lives. But suddenly, we were kissing. When I woke up the next morning, I found Richard already awake, watching me with a mix of affection and uncertainty. "Sarah," he began, his voice serious. "I need to be honest with you. I know I wasn't the best person before. I underestimated you, laughed at you along with Emma. I was wrong, and I'm sorry." I listened, my heart pounding. Where was this going? He took a deep breath. "But last night, it made me realize something. You're an incredible woman, Sarah. I'd like a chance to start over, to do things right this time. Would you consider dating me?" I stared at him, my mind whirling. Date Richard? My sister's ex-husband? It was crazy, completely insane. And yet, yes, I heard myself say. "Let's give it a shot." Richard's face lit up, and as he leaned in to kiss me, I couldn't help but laugh to myself. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be dating my sister's ex-husband, I'd have thought they were nuts. But here I was, embarking on yet another unexpected journey. Just when I thought things were settling into a comfortable rhythm with the language school thriving and my relationship with Richard blossoming, the past came knocking, literally. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when I heard angry pounding on my front door. I opened it to find Emma, her face contorted with rage. "You backstabbing trash," she screamed, pushing past me into the apartment. "I know about you and Richard. You've always wanted to take him from me, haven't you? You've always been jealous of what I had." I felt my own anger rising. "That's ridiculous, Emma. Richard left you because you cheated on him, remember? This has nothing to do with—" "Oh, please," she interrupted, her voice dripping with venom. "As if he'd stay with you. There's nothing special about you, Sarah. You're not beautiful, not like me. He'll leave you just like everyone else does." Her words stung, hitting old insecurities I thought I'd left behind. But I wasn't that pushover anymore. "Get out," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Get out of my home and stay out of my life. We're done, Emma. For good." She glared at me for a long moment before storming out, slamming the door behind her. I sank onto the couch, suddenly feeling ill. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, trying to shake off the nausea and unease. But as the nausea persisted into the next day, a different kind of unease settled over me. On a hunch, I ran down to the pharmacy and bought a pregnancy test. Positive. I was pregnant. My mind reeled. A baby? Now? I needed to tell Richard. This affected him too, after all. I braced myself for his reaction, prepared for anything from joy to anger to a hasty retreat. When I broke the news, Richard was quiet for a long moment. Then, to my surprise, he wrapped me in a tight hug and sighed dramatically. "Richard?" I asked, confused by his reaction. He pulled back, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Well, Sarah, I'm afraid you're going to regret this." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "What do you mean?" His serious expression cracked, replaced by a wide grin. "Because now you're stuck with me for years. Will you marry me?" For the second time in as many days, I was stunned speechless. But this time, joy bubbled up inside me, replacing the earlier distress. "Yes," I laughed, happy tears spilling down my cheeks. "Yes, I'll marry you." As we kissed, celebrating our engagement and the new life growing inside me, I marveled at how far I'd come. From the neglected daughter to a successful business owner, from a victim of my family's schemes to a woman creating her own family. Now, as I plan our wedding, I know there will be two conspicuous absences. Mom and Emma won't be invited. It's a bittersweet decision, but I know it's the right one. I'm building a new life, one filled with love, respect, and happiness. There's no room for their toxicity anymore.